I was quite good at writing and designing leaflets, but every time I did an O on my typewriter, and of course workers' power's got 2 O's in it, I broke the Gestetner printer and the ink poured through. Also, you'd use up all the S's on the letter set because it's socialist this, struggle that, class this. Trying to write leaflets avoiding O's and S's. I'm from a working class family in Liverpool. My parents wanted me to escape the poverty they'd had in terms of income and housing, and to have a professional job with high status. Where our interests coincided was in getting a good education. That education got me into being a political activist, understanding how my family background related to my new life in the relatively middle-class institution of Sheffield University. In the sociology department in the early 80s, most of the debates were between varieties of Marxism. Some of the tutors were activists themselves. These politics of class explained the transition I'd made and the world outside. It was dynamite. It was like taking the back off the telly and seeing how it worked. A lot of people moved to Sheffield because it was the Socialist Republic of South Yorkshire and seen as a very politically active place. I came to Sheffield Poly in 1979. Margaret Thatcher was elected, so there were all sorts of things going on. There was a union meeting, 1,500 people, with David Blunkett, Arthur Scargill and a Polish student from Solidarność. From there we occupied the Poly for 3 weeks.
The Castle Market site saw major protests in the 1790s, fuelled by the high costs of food.
I resent being involved in food banks. We're in the 21st century. We live in a rich country, but people are being forced into destitution. Over the last 2 years, we have seen political activism, with a small p, starting to grow again, and people being more prepared to stand up and challenge deeply divisive policies.
This area was a hive of socialist and radical activity in the late 19th and early 20th century.
I went to a place in the Wicker called Common Ground. My life would change a hell of a lot then because of politics and knowing people and learning about things.
The Women's Construction Training Workshop was set up in 1989 at what was then Parkwood College.
We had full-time, part-time and evening courses in carpentry and joinery and furniture making. It grew and grew. Now it's at the City College and 25 years later has only just started taking men in because the government has slammed all adult learning.
Sheffield's a radical city, but it doesn't have as well documented a history as Manchester or Liverpool, even though the Labour movement has been as strong here as other northern cities. Edward Carpenter has also been overlooked. Even people on the left don't know about him.
Carpenter was a socialist gay activist, and the Friends of Edward Carpenter are campaigning to get a piece of public art dedicated to him.
We're here at Sheffield Cathedral. The pavement outside the cathedral was the site of Occupy Sheffield in 2011-2012. The daughter of one of the activists we interviewed took part in Occupy Sheffield.
At times of widespread distress and unemployment, the cathedral was often occupied on Sundays by the poor as a kind of protest. In 1908, the feast coincided with a period of widespread unemployment. A protest meeting, led by Adela Pankhurst, stormed the hall and a pitched battle with the police followed.
The city does bear traces of the miners' strike, but they're being hidden over. There is cause to highlight these. There's no sense of, where was the battle? It's all smart and done. During the miners' strike, there were different views, but there was also a lot of camaraderie. It was such a big dispute that some of the petty politics and sectarianism were pushed to one side. Working together in the community is so much more difficult now. The voluntary community sector had been smashed. If you smash hope from people, it's so destructive. And that's one of the legacies, the awful legacies of the miners' strikes.
In the run-up to the Health and Social Care Bill becoming law, we did a mock auction, selling off, so to speak, cancer, heart and liver services to the highest bidder. We had props, an operating table and costumes. I'm sure the conveniently wide pavement wasn't designed for this, but it's a natural place for street theatre.
We've got to keep up the fight, because if we don't, we're never going to change people's lives. You've got to do something. Because if you don't, what have your grandkids got to look forward to?
The figure from the past that people want to live up to is the city itself. Sheffield has got a lot to be proud of, and that's what we're trying to emulate. We want to make our city proud by carrying on those traditions.